All right, gentlemen. Well, this is SANDCAST Beach Volleyball with Bourne and Travis Mewhirter, and we are going into the cold today, out to Canada with new Volleyball World CEO Finn Taylor. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, guys. Great to see you both.
Good to see you too. It's exciting times in the world of international volleyball right now. The Tokyo Olympics happened, which was awesome, and now we have a new system in place. The FIVB is sort of being kind of rebranded as the Volleyball World Beach Pro Tour. And so we have a new system, a three-tiered system replacing the star system. And Finn, you're charged with leading us into these new waters here.
Yeah, we're giving it a shot. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I'm very excited. I mean, we're really looking forward to the challenge and taking the sport forward and onto new heights, I think.
Yeah. When we were talking sort of before we went on the record, you said, Volleyball World as a company has only been around since March. So what are the first steps when you kind of take a sport as big as volleyball, which is the fourth most participated in sport in the world, and now you're sort of taking it not in a totally new direction, but you're pivoting a little bit as the speak is.
Yeah. No, look, I think the first thing we realized really quickly on is that the sport itself is fantastic, right? It's not like we wanted to reinvent beach volleyball and come out with a whole new system and change it from there. We actually felt that the sport itself just needed to be showcased better. And oftentimes with volleyball and beach volleyball, the sporting event is kept in such a sterile and unentertainment environment, if you like, that you don't get attraction from fans outside of that core passionate beach volleyball audience. And so for us, in terms of when we talk about developing the product, we were really keen that we didn't want to destroy the integrity of the sport itself, but we want to build on that. And we wanted to be able to create a tour and create events that really highlighted the athletes, but also provided good opportunity for sponsors, broadcasters, and the public beyond those that are sitting on the court, or the hardcore dedicated fans that will just fall down a YouTube rabbit hole to find beach volleyball.
Right.
And so things like, we actually said that from the start, we would take on all of the broadcast responsibility. So Volleyball World is going to invest in broadcasting every single match on the tour, which hasn't been done before. Normally it's just semifinals and finals. But if we want to create a narrative and we want people to follow their superstars and create context in these matches that pop up on YouTube on a Saturday afternoon, you need to be able to commit to understanding how those teams have fought through the rounds and through the quarters and got to where they are. So we've pulled a team together from outside of volleyball. My CMO is from Nike, and she spent a long time at the UFC. I have a head of sponsorship that's just come straight out of Formula One. And so, we've brought other sport experience into the team to be able to really look at all of the elements and line them up so that we believe we're going to have a really, really strong product for years to come.
And you were also coming well outside of volleyball. You were coming from Cirque du Soleil, where you had an almost 20-year career there. I'm curious what made you, I'm really curious about what your time with Cirque du Soleil was like, and what made you want to leave it to another sort of venture with beach volleyball.
Well, it was it's a great company and it's a fantastic operation and puts on amazing shows. My role was primarily in running the touring show business. So all of the shows that went around the world and on the beach in Santa Monica and in the big tops and the arenas around the world. So there's actually a lot of crossover in terms of beach volleyball when you think about trying to put events on around the world and dealing with promoters and organizers. And look, the pandemic hit Cirque hard, right? It hit all entertainment. In fact, shut down the tour for a while there because of the pandemic. And for me, 20 years was a nice round number, and this opportunity came along, and sports has always been certainly a huge attraction for me. And so right time, right place, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, it's exciting. The last time you had a new venture was when you think about it, what, 2000, almost 2000. So it's got to be fun to kind of start a new chapter, a new season of life here.
Very much so. Yeah. Look, it's an amazing opportunity, and as I was saying earlier, no one realizes outside of volleyball how big volleyball really is.
Yeah.
And I think that's for us is where the potential lies. And I look at sports like tennis and go, well, I mean, why can't beach volleyball be as big as tennis? I don't understand why not.
Yeah.
And you know, when you think about how we can grow a business around the tour and how we can highlight the athletes and bring them to a stage that I think they deserve to be at, it's all in front of us, really.
Yeah. And you mentioned that it's not many people outside of beach volleyball understand how big beach volleyball is. When you were approached for the job, or maybe you sought the job, I'm not sure how that process went, but did you realize how big it was? Or was that until after you got the job, you're like, whoa, I got kind of a giant on my hands here?
Well, that was part of the attraction, right? Was realizing what a sleeping giant it really was, and being able to grasp that opportunity to say, okay, we've got a great product, right? First, we have a great product, indoor and beach, knock it out of the park in terms of the athleticism, the skill level, the excitement. But often the packaging needs improving, and the entire package, and not just talking about the match on the court, but the fan experience of buying a ticket, getting to the venue, getting to the beach court, figuring out, you know, what's all around the match itself or the games themselves. And that for me personally was a real attraction because, you know, the anecdote I use is I'm from Montreal, and we don't have an NBA team in Montreal. So whenever I'm in Miami, I'll make an effort to go and see the Heat play.
Yeah.
Not because I'm a fan of basketball, but it's a fantastic experience.
Right.
And if we can get people to walk along a beach, stumble across a beach volleyball tournament, or preferably market to them well and have them attend a beach volleyball tournament.
Right.
It's the product itself will do the selling, right? The event they're so, you know, so fun, so cool. The sport is just bananas strong that, you know, my job really is to be able to give people the opportunity. And what we're doing with Volleyball TV and what we're doing with the rest of Volleyball World is about providing fans the opportunity to experience volleyball at a top level. And we believe that the product will sell itself.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting times. I mean, especially for a player, I always get excited when I see outsiders come in, people that aren't familiar with our sport to come in, because it's just such a fresh set of eyes, especially when you've had success in other aspects of business. How do you see, because it seems like there's going to be a lot of changes. Do you think that, obviously you said the product is already really good. Do you think that the players and the actual game itself is going to see any sort of change in terms of that side of things?
You mean like in the rules or the
not like the rules,
but
yeah, I mean, we've already seen the scheduling. There's a different tier system. You know, just like from a player standpoint in terms of fans interacting with players and whatnot.
Yeah, look, I think what we're trying to do, right, is kill a few birds with one stone, right? We want to keep the game, we want to keep the integrity of the game, we want to keep the sport pure, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
But we also realize that, like, for the last decade, the tour really has sort of treaded water, and the number of events hasn't grown, the total prize pool hasn't grown. The number of events has been really inconsistent year to year, which makes it really hard for the athletes to plan, to build careers, to earn great money. And so we had kind of two choices. You know, we could have kept going down that path and just working on a more of the same sort of deal. But we believe that there's a better opportunity if we can tell an easier story for the public.
Yeah.
And so while there was 5 stars in the old system, there was hardly ever any 2 stars and hardly ever any 5 stars.
Yeah.
And so there really wasn't 5 stars.
Right.
And so it's really hard to tell a fan what's the difference between a 1 and a 2 star. There's no difference except for some prize money. And like for every 21 star events, there might have been 1 2-star event. Right?
So, I have to admit, as a player, obviously a lot of people ask us about the sport and are confused. I barely know what the heck's going on. I can't even explain it to fans. Like, where should I watch? What ranking system? I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know where to rank or why. I just show up and try to play at the highest level. Like, it really has been confusing.
But if you went to go and see a tennis tournament, right, there's 4 that matter. And then there's probably 8 that matter under that. And then there's 12 that matter under that. And then there's 45 that matter under that. And so, but the way that they sell it is just, it's the ATP Tour.
Right.
And so really the Beach Pro Tour is built on that. Although right now a lot of focus is being done on the individual levels of the events. Realistically, with the way the rankings work and the way that the events will be planned and scheduled, it's the Beach Pro Tour. And so you will be a participant on that. And if your ranking goes up, you'll be invited to other events. And if your ranking goes down, you'll be invited to other events. And so what we tried to do was, first and foremost, we wanted to focus the new format around the athlete. So the idea is to highlight the athletes, create the superstars, make the fans know who player X and player Y is. Yeah. And not just USA or Canada or Australia. We wanted to really say, no, these are individual people. Right. And they are playing on the tour and they should be recognized. Because everyone knows who Djokovic is or Andy Murray or people like that. And so that was the first thing. The second thing we needed to do was to have a format of an event that allowed promoters and organizers to make money. And the reason that we hadn't had consistency in the previous decade of beach volleyball was that the events were getting bigger and bigger and more expensive to run, and people didn't want to run them. And so we wanted to create a format that possibly was, let's say, smaller on grandstand size and smaller on overall infrastructure. But when I talk to a guy in Mexico or I talk to a guy in South Africa, they're like, okay, that makes sense. I think we can run one of those and make money and run it for multiple years. And so, we've got events signed on our tour now that are signed for 3 or 4 year contracts, even a couple up to 6 or 7, because they understand that the event makes sense for them. And if it makes sense for them, it's going to make sense for the athletes and it'll make sense for the tour as a whole. And so this was this is quite a big change in thinking in terms of how do we create sustainability and consistency year to year, not just looking at 22 and going, what's the best we can do next year? I actually want what's the best for 22, 23, 24, 25, because I want to get us into a situation where the athletes know that every August they're in Canada or every March they're in Mexico. And we can build routine. And then what's better is the broadcasters know every March we're in Mexico and every August we're in Canada. And then the sponsors know that. And so we start to get traditions, we start to get history, and we start to get recognition of what's happening. And it's not just some random tour that changes every year and is sort of adapting to the situation. Everyone knows when the Australian Open is or when Wimbledon is. And we should get there. There's no reason to say we couldn't get there. I heard you guys a few weeks ago were talking about Stade in Switzerland, right? Everyone knows when that is.
Yeah.
Right.
And we want to have that sort of legacy in the sport that the athletes from around the world, whether they're in America or Brazil or wherever, know that that's when this tournament's on, this tournament's on, this tournament's on. And that's obviously not as easy to do as booking 15 random tournaments.
Right.
So 22 is, we're working hard. The team's working hard on booking events. But 23, 24, 25, it's going to be It's going to be crazy. It's going to be fantastic.
I love it.
I think one of the biggest questions beach volleyball's had the last, basically forever is how do you make an event make sense for the promoter in South Africa, in Stad, wherever it may be, The Hague? How do you make it make sense for the promoter and the players? So what kinds of things were you guys doing that's enabling you to sign these, 2-year, 3-year, 6 or 7-year contracts? Because that's been one of the biggest questions forever. And one of the things that the AVP is, I feel like, having trouble with every year is how do we make this make sense to have a tournament in New York or in Atlanta?
Okay, so the first thing we do is charge for ticket, right? So wild concept, but we don't believe that beach volleyball is worthless.
I'm going to give you a round of applause, Finn.
It's a wild concept, and I can't believe how wild a concept it is. But you don't give away your crown jewel, right? So this is something that we're very insistent on with our organizers around the world, because even if it's $5, $10, $15, it has a value. There is an intrinsic value to the athletes putting in the effort and putting on a show. So that's a big part. To be quite frank, we're not getting pushback on that, obviously, from most of the professional organizers that we're getting. But there's a cultural thing in beach volleyball that it's free, which I'm not yet understanding, but maybe one day I will. The second and perhaps more important path is that we did a very strong exercise very early on that pulled a lot of the bureaucracy out of the organization of the event. So in terms of reducing the number of officials that had to visit an event, reducing the requirements in terms of number of courts, number of infrastructures. The format changes were specifically designed to be able to reduce the number of courts and grandstands and bathrooms and nights of hotels and things. So that the organizer still got an amazing tournament over 4 or 5 days, still had the best athletes in the world, had a fully produced TV competition, had global exposure, and had a path to make money, whether it's selling tickets, local sponsorship, food and beverage, merchandise, and then there's the government support and the city support and the tourism support. So this was something that we worked very hard on early, so that we could go to market and say to organizers, not just federations. I mean, we're working with a lot of federations; they're fantastic, but also, I went back into my network of promoters and event producers around the world to be able to bring a new generation of partner to the table who already come out with some fantastic ideas about events around the event that will really create opportunity for them and for our tour down the road.
How value has your experience with Cirque du Soleil been so far? You mentioned you've kind of tapped into that network, but I feel like just your ability to find different spots to put on events. I feel like you've been building this skill set for the last 20 years, almost specifically for this job. And you probably didn't even know.
It fits well.
Yeah.
It fits well. Look, I mean, it's good. I can ring up people in the Dominican Republic and know that they'll put an event on and things like that, right? So having the network is really beneficial. But these guys are not in the business of losing money. So we have to make sure the product is good and the product is of the quality that we say it is. Right. So I think I can tell you we're not going to have trapeze artists and jugglers at the tournament. That's for sure. Okay. But it is a show, right? Like, we want the fans to be entertained, and we want the broadcast and the TV partners to realize that we're not just putting 2 people on one side of the court and 2 people on the other side of the court and watching that. There has to be an entertainment element to the product, and it has to be positioned in a way that it's more than the sum of its parts. And I think that's really important as we tell the story of the Beach Pro Tour. And we talk about these athletes who more or less full-time training hard as any other elite athlete in the world and not getting the recognition that they probably deserve. And we need to be able to build a pedestal for them to stand on and to really show their skills and to get value for it. That's what we hope to do with the tour. Yeah. Is have these athletes use the tour, right, as a pathway to even bigger and better things.
Yeah, I feel like in my 8 or 9 years on being on F5EB Tour, and even AVP, to be honest. I don't feel like the players have been promoted and put out to the audience in a way that at least impressed me or excited me as an athlete. And obviously we're all trying to do that with our personal brands, but it's not exactly our expertise. So hearing that that's a priority is really exciting for me. I really, really believe that we can, there's some really, like, there's some athletes out there. If you go through, you know, the Lion Kings and the Casey Pattersons and Anders and Christian, and the personalities and that are players are, you know, coming up with, you know, obviously they're authentic, but like they're doing a good job. There's a lot of people that are doing a really good job on their own without really the help of any tour. Like, you throw us up on Instagram, it's not really helping our brand that much, or like really letting the audience know who we are. And then we can walk on the court and be like our authentic selves, and people know who we are, and, you know, we can kind of play to that. And
100%.
I think it's going to be a big deal. But my thought is, you guys lowered the main elite tour, Elite 16, to 16 teams this year. What's the main thought process behind that? Is it the promotion, picking less players to promote, and are you going to stick to like just those 16 for the most part? And then
so it's not a closed league, right? And I think this has been a little bit confusing. Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea behind the 16 is based around two things. Firstly, quality of matches. Mm-hmm. So we know from experience, right, that if you go to the World Championships, the last 2 days are where the amazing matches come. Or if you go to the Tour Finals at the end of the year, it's 4 days of amazing beach volleyball. We saw it in Sardinia this year. It's fantastic sport the whole week. So the Elite 16 is a showcase, effectively, of the 16 best ranked teams at that time.
Yeah.
But if the players in the challenge events or the other events earn more points, they will be invited to these events throughout the season. Yeah. It's not a closed league, and the idea is certainly not just to lock it off, but rather than have 5 tournaments of 32 players, we wanted to have 15, 16, 17, 20 tournaments of 16 players. And then the challenge event, which is call it your ATP 500 event, the next level down, is a bigger field for sure. Yeah. And there's more local wildcards and things like that. But it's not about creating a separate league. It's not about creating a closed league for a season. It's more about having a quality of showcase for the sport, where every match is a great match, and the promoters and the organizers are getting a solid 4 days of amazing volleyball.
But do you would you, let's say you're promoting a certain group of athletes, right? The top elite ones. Let's say some slide back. Do those players still kind of like get to be followed by the audience? Or
yeah, absolutely.
Or is it like,
so we're going to broadcast the challenge as well. Like, all of the challenge events are being broadcast as well. They're being produced and broadcast. And we're not picking 16 teams to be promoted.
Right.
We're going to pick the athletes that want to be, that are the stars, that are the rising stars, the falling stars. Again, it's about creating a storyline, right? So if you think about, I'll give you a Canadian example, right? Eugenie Bouchard, tennis player, right? I don't know where she's ranked right now, but she has an amazing following on social media. She's still very popular with the sport, but she's had a couple of tough years in tennis. On the vice versa, you've got the girl from the UK who won the US Open this year, who's a rising star, and she's being built up and promoted.
Right. Yeah.
I took my kids to see a beach volleyball tournament last summer, and they'd never seen a beach volleyball tournament before. I have a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old boy, and I couldn't get them out of the stadium the whole weekend. And all they wanted to go and do was see the Qatar guys. Right? They gravitated towards the guys from Qatar, and for them, that was their team the whole weekend. And so we're not picking we're not picking the stars, right? No one picked Michael Jordan.
Right. The audience does, right?
The audience is the one that's going to pick who are the superstar and who are the fan favorite.
Yeah.
What we will do is amplify that, and in fact, we're going to hold seminars for all of the athletes to improve their social media. We're going to hold seminars for the athletes with Snapchat, with Instagram, and all of these companies to help them help themselves as well, because it's in our interest that they're better at this as well, the off-court stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not, in the end, it's not Volleyball World or the FIVB or anyone to necessarily determine that that's who's going to be the best. It'll be the fans and the performance on the court.
Right. I always kind of wondered how that worked, because I see like the NBA and like, it seems like they really pick superstars and like, but
so the NBA, so it's interesting, right? It's not the NBA, it's Nike, or it's Converse, or it's Under Armour.
Right.
Like Nike's very much LeBron James, right? That's their pillars are basketball and LeBron James.
Uh-huh.
But for us, the worst thing we could do is make a determination that goes against the audience. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I love it. Sounds good. And so we mentioned before on the show how you've been getting a lot of feedback from the players, which I'm a part of. So I've been a part of the text chains and whatnot. And you mentioned that you love it. Can you talk
it's really important.
about the feedback that you've gotten so far from the players?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously the good thing is they want more matches, right? They want more tournaments, which is exactly what we're working on. When we announced the schedule 2 weeks ago, or last week or 2 weeks ago, it's clearly a work in progress, and we continue to build and sign events. And the team that's working on the hosting and the negotiations is working 6-7 days a week with discussions all over the world. So, it's not just 4 months in the middle of the year in Europe. We are creating events in Brazil and South Africa and Egypt, and had a meeting with Morocco this week. And I mean, that's all over the place. And so as we get into this first year of events, remember last year we had 5 events, 3 of them in Cancun. So, we're still coming out of a really tough COVID time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we announced 16 or 17, I think, in the first tranche, and we'll be announcing more as we go and bringing on more events online, and adding. We don't have a cap on the number of events that we want. I tell my team there's 52 weekends in a year. We might give Christmas off, but realistically, right, it's about opportunity.
Yeah.
And 16 events across 12 months does not create front of mind thought for the fans, does not create a legitimate product for the broadcasters, does not create continuity in the way that we promote the sport and promote the tour.
Yeah.
So we will have more events coming on as often as we can. And again, on multi-year relationships, so that once we get past the hump of 22, you'll start to see much more consistency in the way the tour is going.
I love it.
Because for us to be able to create a consistent message to the fans, we want them to know, every Saturday I can watch beach volleyball, or every Sunday afternoon I know there's a final on. And if they go onto Volleyball TV, then they can watch it all the time, and it'll be as omnipresent as that, to be able to create that culture.
Yeah. And I guess I know the thing that I keep hearing kind of come up is kind of the concern from, let's say, the 17th best team in the world, right? Where we're used to having a deeper draw. Yep. And on the world tour, as Travis knows, like the 17th best team in the world might win. Like there's a good chance they're going to win the tournament. In our sport, it's not top 8 are usually always winning and on the podium. It's like a big fluctuation of that. And I think a big concern I'm hearing throughout the players, and obviously we haven't gotten the schedule and you've communicated that, and everyone needs to just be patient. But what would your message be to those 17 to 18 teams that feel like if we're stuck on the Challenger Tour and the schedule doesn't favor us getting up to that 16, we're not going to be able to make a living? Be
patient. You'll have more events than you know what to do with. Trust me.
Love it. Simple.
No, I honestly, I told my team that if I don't hear the complaints about too many opportunities, then we're not doing our job. No, look, we get it, right? I think we'll see when we get into the season that the way that the points have been worked out by the FIVB, you'll see flow and you'll see fluctuation. But for us, it's about maximizing the number of events, and there will be more than opportunity for everyone.
Yeah. So it's good to hear that you guys are just aware of it. I think
Absolutely.
Hearing it, they kind of can spin out a little bit and create scenarios and like, what's happening now?
No,
like,
but that's natural, right? We understand that. Yeah, we understand that they want to plan, they want to be able to model things in their minds, which is a very good thing to do, but it can also be a very bad thing if they start to go down the rabbit hole sort of thing. So for us, what we want to be able to do is create a calendar that works for everyone, right? Again, it's one thing for us to put on 15 events on the challenge level for the athletes, but it's almost just a part of the overall picture, right? Yeah. We want to be able to create a tour that everyone, athletes, fans, teams, federations, Olympic committees, sponsors, broadcasters, understand, are waiting for, can see the value in, and it'll build from there. Yeah. And I completely understand where the athletes are coming from, and yeah, there is dates that we are in the process of filling for sure, and as we come on, you're going to see the picture evolve and you'll see the tour evolve. And look, there's still COVID, right? We're not out of the woods in terms of being able to transport people, get entry into countries. So this is a reality we're going to have to deal with for a little bit longer. Yeah. But we already announced whatever we announced last year was equal to the number of events in 2018 before COVID even hit. So we're starting to see good traction, and it's only going to go up from here.
Yeah. As a player, I appreciate you having, respecting the players' opinions and like why we're coming from where we're coming from. But I personally, to be honest, and I'm a bubble team. I think, Travis, you probably know better than me, but I think I'm in the top 16. So
I think you're good.
But my point is that, you know what? I want to see the sport succeed. I'm hearing the things you guys are saying and the problems that you're realizing, and I'm fully agreeing on a lot of this stuff in my head. I feel like we have the right leadership in place now. I feel like, you're probably making it more challenging. You have to be top 16 in the world. But this is what our sport needs. And instead of all of us just making a little bit of money and just kind of being an average sport, I'd rather the top be extremely good and just carry everyone and make it really difficult to be at the top, because that's how it should be. If there's a giant reward at the top, then it should be difficult to get there, rather than spreading the cream cheese thin. Like, no, we need a lot of cream cheese. We need a lot of good bites. And I'm
sure there's a lot of golfers. I'm sure there's a lot of golfers that would thank Tiger Woods for dominating for all those years in the early 2000s, because he basically single-handedly blew prize money out of the water. Yeah. And you're right, that the top will lift everybody up for sure.
Yes.
And this is something that we're very, very strong on. Yeah. You asked before, Travis, what did I learn at Cirque du Soleil? One of the things I learned at Cirque du Soleil was to listen to the athletes and to the artists and to the athlete. And something that I'm very strong on here with my team and also just myself is, these guys are the stars of the show, and we need the athletes to be able to perform and to be able to compete at the highest level, and we need to give them the stage to do that. So it's something that's very important to move forward.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, as long as the sport's growing, sure, we should all be challenged to grow with it, and I'm excited about it.
Awesome.
In your experience so far, Finn, what have been the biggest challenges in terms of trying to get the events? It seems that you've had a lot of success. Obviously, COVID it would be a huge challenge that every sport is dealing with, but has it been tougher to get a challenger, an Elite 16, a futures? Has there been any specific challenges to any of those tiers, or has it been just kind of pretty equal interest in all of them?
Yeah, look, it's COVID by far has been the biggest hindrance. People are not wanting to talk yet, not knowing what will happen, or they want to talk, but they can't get the governments to open their wallets yet. So that's been the big thing. In terms of challenge or an elite, No, I mean, there's different horses for different courses, right? There's some countries that really want more local teams, and so that they tend to gravitate towards a challenge event to be able to get more wild cards for the locals. And there's some markets and some promoters that want the best of the best and just go straight to an Elite 16. There's some places where we'll have back-to-back. So we'll have a challenge and an elite across sort of a 10-day festival of beach volleyball, if you like, because there's some that want more. And so, we're seeing a mix. We're not seeing anyone say absolutely no to anything yet. The futures events are being run by the confederations, as were the 1 and 2 stars in the old format. So we're not getting as much visibility on that right now. But certainly in terms of challenger and elite events in those 2 formats, it's not like we're having to talk people into one or the other. They're sort of figuring out which direction they want to go and going in that way.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, I feel like the 3-tier system just alone probably solved a lot of the problems that the 5-star system created. Because you mentioned there really were no 2 stars. There really were no 5 stars because promoters wisened up and were like, well, we could throw a 5-star with the price of a 4-star. Essentially, we're getting that talent, and we could throw a 2-star with the price.
And who does that hurt, right? The only person that hurts is the athlete.
Right.
And so, we had a number of 5-star events that were great for a couple of years and then shut down. And we went from, I think, 14 events to 7 in 1 year. So it really hurts the athletes in the end. And what we're trying to do the opposite to that. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And I feel like there's just so much commercial appeal to beach volleyball, just as there was so much commercial appeal to F1, that CVC, which is the same firm that kind of pumped a lot of money into Formula One and I believe rugby, and both of those sports are now thriving commercially. And everyone who listens to SANDCAST has pretty much watched Drive to Survive and what that's done for the sport. How much are you guys looking at the direction that CVC took, in F1 and a rugby, and saying we could do a lot of that with beach volleyball?
Well, needless to say, every sport wants a Drive to Survive. And we're having discussions. I mean, there's a lot of attraction to the sport, not just from Netflix, but other producers. So yeah, having the CVC connection has certainly helped us in terms of, I guess, legitimacy, if that's the right phrase to use. It's not to say that the sport's not legit, because of course it is, but I think having that business side and understanding the resources and the power behind it is certainly valuable on the commercial side. And look, we're having interest from sponsors who have never sponsored beach volleyball before in terms of tour sponsors, which is really interesting. I mean, we're still in discussions, but traditionally there's been a very small portfolio of sponsors, and we're starting to see that evolve and change. So we feel like we're heading in the right direction to be able to, sort of elevate it. No, look, yes, I think that CVC is certainly, it's great for us in terms of they've been there and done that. They owned Formula One for 12 years. So, they took it from a pretty British-based sport that had some international viewership to pretty much just before Drive to Survive was released. So they were able to grow the teams, the team's values, the number of events around the world, and really get it ready for the explosion that it's had over the last, I would say, 3 years, I suppose.
Yeah. I feel like beach volleyball, it's got the swell is coming, to use that metaphor that Gervais used when we had him on Try. When Gervais was talking about the mental health boom that's come and all the, mental health practices and awareness, he's like, it's like sitting in the ocean, you can feel that swell coming. I feel like that's how it's been with beach volleyball for a while. I mean, there's so many people who play and watch the sport. And I feel like one of the biggest blessings and curses of it is that it's the biggest sport at every Summer Olympics, and it's this explosion, and then it kind of goes away. And one of the biggest challenges is, how do we sustain it? Why? Exactly. Why does it go away? And so I feel like that's sort of the problem that I think Volleyball World seems poised to solve. And maybe it's not going to be solved in 2022 or 2023, but I feel like the strategies that you're talking about are how to make it sustainable between a Paris and an LA and, a Tokyo and a Paris.
you know, one of the things about the Olympics often is legacy, right? And one of the challenges that we have as a sport is that we don't take the opportunity given to us at the Olympics to leave that legacy. You know, I mean, I'm old enough to remember Bondi Beach in 2000, and we do have FIVB tournaments in Australia on a semi-regular, until hopefully moving forward, basis. We haven't been back to the UK since the beach volleyball at Horse Guards Parade, which was an amazing venue. And maybe we can't get that out of an Olympics, but why? You know, there was a lot of British people that came and saw a fantastic tournament that we didn't capitalize on. In Paris, we're going to be in just the most iconic location in the city. And we're working on an event in Paris already for the tour. So we will build that stop, and we will have that legacy for the tour built off the Olympics. We really want to avoid that dip between Olympics, because it's such an amazing calling card for the sport that we really want to be able to take advantage of.
Yeah. What's the day-to-day look like for you right now? I'm sure it's you're probably up pretty early and going to bed pretty late, just trying to figure out the logistics for the schedules and everything.
Look, yeah, it is, but it's, you know, it's positive discussions, right? We're still getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of interest. And it's really good, even coming this close to Christmas, to be quite honest. Normally things shut down, but we're really encouraged about the way discussions are going, and people are seeing the vision, right? And the promoters are understanding what we're trying to do. Sponsors are really seeing the value that they can attach by getting involved in the sport. So we're super encouraged in the direction, and really looking forward to getting started and having some tournaments going and getting the athletes back on the beach.
I love it. And
we mentioned earlier about, this swell coming, right? And I mean, just international alone is amazing. But have you heard much about what's happening in the US? Because when I think about this swell coming, I'm like, wow, this international, everything sounds so great. But we also have a new tour, new ownership on the domestic tour on the AVP. How do you look at like domestic tours and the success and how that can affect you guys?
Well, it's all positive, right? I mean, at the end of the day, all the boats are going to float higher on the high tide. We want the domestic tours, whether it's AVP or tours in Germany and France and Europe. We want them to be successful. We want them to thrive, because we'll keep feeding that next generation of international superstars and international athletes to be able to build off that.
Yep.
It's really important. You know, Australia's got a building tour for during their summer, which is obviously our winter.
Right.
And these are fantastic. And yeah, it's very interesting for Bally's to pick up AVP. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And for us, it's all positive.
You must be a little familiar with Bally's, just because Cirque du Soleil was such a big Vegas entity. Right?
So my job was everything except Las Vegas. So I only ever went there to lose money, not to make it.
Love it.
Well, Finn, we appreciate you tons for taking the time to come on. I know it's a crazy busy time of year, and it's awesome that the CEO of Volleyball World, who's very busy, is coming to chat with a couple players on a podcast, and we appreciate your time a ton.
No worries, guys. I love your work, and keep it up. It's good listening.
Yeah, no, seriously, appreciate it so much, and we're really excited about what's to come.
Well, we'll see you out on tour next year.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Finn, thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.